Okay, awesome. So what do you do? Tell us about what is your life. I loved your bio. Um, Super cute. You have a wheelchair dog, is that right?
I do. Yeah. Rosie is my pup. She came home with me from Thailand. I was on a backpacking trip and I brought her home with me.
No way. You were able to do that?
Yeah. So the founder of that program, Lanta Animal Welfare, had family in California, and I was living not too far from LAX at the time. So they flew from Bangkok to Los Angeles, and I picked him up at the airport.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And did he have a wheelchair there or you got it for him when he got here?
So Junie is the woman who has Lanta Animal Welfare, and she has a program worked out with somebody in the U.S. to export wheelchairs there. So it came from the U.S., went to Thailand, and then came back to the U.S. with her.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
How cute. Is she just like the most grateful dog that you have her or what?
No, she's just expectant, as if life was meant to be catered to her. That's her whole MO. Yeah.
That's amazing. What kind of dog is it?
She's a little terrier.
Oh,
Yeah, she's always watching my six. She sits right outside those doors and just keeps guard.
nice.
So,
Is she a
yeah.
terror or a terrier or a terror
Terrier.
terrier?
Terrier. No, she's a sweetheart. She's kind of precocious, but she's a sweetheart.
Aw, right
Yeah.
on. That's adorable.
Yeah.
Mine are brats, but it is what it is. They
What
know they
kind
got
are
a good
they?
home. They're just like, whatever.
What
Yeah.
kind of dogs do you have?
So I have miniature huskies. They're called Alaskan Kleak Eyes. Yeah, and so they literally look like your regular size husky, but they're shrunk down and they're not doodles or anything, but so they shed a lot, but they're so cool. And like all animals, they all have different personalities. So I've had 3 now and they're all as different from each other as you could possibly get. But, I love them. They're a lot of fun. My youngest one now, and he's almost 2, is just so high energy compared to the other 2. I need to walk him all the time. He's always getting in trouble. He's on my kitchen counter. He's stealing stuff out of my purse. He's a terror. But at the same time, he's the most loving of all of them. So he does all this cute stuff that makes me forget about all the bad stuff that he's doing, and so he gets away with murder.
He's the baby of the family, sounds like. Just cute and could get away with anything. I love that.
100%. And you're kind of beaten down by that point. You're like, I'm not like this, like, I need to be very disciplined. You're just like, yeah, okay. I pick my battles at this point.
I love that. Yep. What are you going to do? This is just how it is today. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really glad I ran into you at the Arate. So tell me a bit about your story. Like, you have a story of recovery yourself, correct?
Yeah, I do. And I keep the details kind of vague just for the sake of my own boundaries. But yeah, so I got into recovery
Sure.
pretty young. I have people in my family who are in recovery. And as I was growing up, it kind of got spoon fed to me what a life of um, personal growth and awareness could look like, but I wasn't ready yet. And so when I was 18, that same person in my life looked at me and said, "Hey, kid, you're struggling and I'd like to get you some help." And so I've been on that path since I was about 18 years old. And it took a couple years to stick, a lot of us, I think that's true.
Yeah.
But it took a couple years for it to stick. And so 21, I was 21 years old when, God willing, I got to put everything down, all of those vices, all of that dysfunction and brokenness, and seeking external medication for an internal wound.
Yeah.
And it's just been the journey from there.
Well, 18 is so young because there's part of you that just sort of feels like invincible, like that kind of stuff is for older people. I'm so far from that, where I think it's very difficult for people who are younger to take recovery seriously because there's not as much like destruction that's occurred yet. I mean, not always. Sometimes there is, but a lot of times it just takes a little more to get to that point of even being ready for something like that.
Yeah. And I wasn't. I was not ready at 18. And I also wasn't ready at 21. Um, for me, what that looked like is somebody asked me if there was a correlation between the poor behavior I was participating in, all of those vices, all of that, for me, it was drinking, and then the what else happened after I started drinking. And so somebody asked me, like, what's the correlation for you? If you touch substances, if you're using mind altering chemicals, what happens in your life? I was like, oh, well, everything melts down. So maybe I ought to look at not using those substances, not drinking. And I wasn't ready to be done, but I was ready to stop having the consequences.
Right. Well,
And
again, 21 is like
yeah,
finally legal drinking age. So to be able to say, well, wait a minute, this is a gateway. I could see this now. You're right. I should stop. I think that's a hard age. I mean, that's when I got into recovery myself, was 21. And it was, and I'd been waiting like, oh, I can't wait till I'm 21. I get to go to the bars. And then it was like, oh, actually, you're going to go to rehab. It's like, wait, what?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it can be difficult. It takes a lot of discipline and understanding and willpower to want to do that.
I was just sick and tired of feeling the way that I felt, and I was willing to try it. And they gave me a timeline. So when I
Mm.
got into a place where I was willing to put some of those chemicals down, that drinking down, they offered me, the same person in my life that had been in recovery had looked at me and said, well, it took me 7 years to feel like I belonged. So why don't you just try it for a little while? I mean, 7 years isn't all that long. What have you got to lose? You're either going to feel better, or you can say you've done it and check it off the list and you'll never hear another word about it again. And I'm
Mm.
stubborn, right? So I was like, oh, yeah, like that sounds good to me. I'll prove you. I'll get
Mhm.
solved. I'll get cured in 7 years. And 4.5 years is what it took for me to really feel like I belonged and like this was a lifelong journey that I wanted to be on.
Awesome. And so what does that look like for you today as part of this continued journey?
There's a recovery community that I plug into on a regular basis, and um, there's two particular pieces. So for me, it's the drinking, but it's also the people I go home with once I start drinking. So I need support around both. So I've plugged
Mm.
into communities, recovery communities for both of those things. And I do a lot of work reaching out to people who are still in their disease. So on a regular basis, I'll get a phone call. Hey, so-and-so is not doing great. We need somebody to just show up and talk to them or their family. Like, we don't know. They're crazy over here. Can someone help us? And
Mm.
I will grab a friend and we'll go see what we can do to help.
That's pretty amazing. And to work yourself into that position where you become the go-to, it means you've done a lot of work yourself and other people recognize that to make you that person.
I think it's just a matter of being willing,
Yeah.
right? Like, I pick up the phone when they call it. So whether I'm super qualified or not, I have been able to put down the drink. I've been able to let go of the other vices. And it doesn't mean I have some spiritual high ground. I'm not a saint. But I'm willing to show up and share what happened for me.
Yeah.
And my perspective with that is that God gave me a gift and I've just been willing to receive it for all of these years.
That's awesome. Well, and I think you really hit on a key thing, which is addiction can be a very selfish kind of thing. And just because you're not using doesn't mean that that goes away. But I feel like with you, you've found the giving part helps heal us
Mhm.
in a way, whereas just getting sober, overcoming that, now I'm just going to go do my life. Maybe there's not as much fulfillment there. Whereas, like you said, you pick up the phone. Not everybody does that. A lot of people are like, I need to protect myself. That's not something I'm going to do. But you've kind of leaned into that.
Yeah, there's a lot of the sayings that float around in recovery, and some of them I really grab onto. And one of them is don't let the life that recovery gave you um, distract you from what got you there.
Mm.
So, I've got this big, beautiful life. I run a business. I have this little wheelchair dog. I'm able to participate in a really beautiful social life. And I only get to do that if I don't touch the drink. And the
Mm.
way that I got there was to show up. It was to answer the phone. It was to show up in my own recovery process and with groups of people that were on a similar path. And if it's like ET phone home, right? Like if I don't connect, then I can't expect people to connect back to me.
Right.
So,
Well, and it is so much about the community and the people you surround yourself with, whether, it's helping you thrive or it's bringing you down. And it sounds like with your past, similar to mine, I always gravitated towards the ones that maybe I was doing better than all them, but none of us were doing great. And so it
right.
makes a big difference of who you surround yourself with, how much you're going to be able to grow and thrive and want to expand yourself.
Yeah. And it's a different level of awareness too,
Mm,
not just about me, but about what I can do in the world. Because I used to not have any of that. I just had chronically low self-esteem. So
mm,
I didn't think I was going to be able to help anybody. I didn't think I was going to be other than transactional, right? I thought, well, what can I give
yeah.
you? Which is part of why I went home with strange people. What I
Yeah.
had to give you was my body. And that part I do feel like I can speak pretty freely about because so many of us have been there.
Yeah.
If
Well,
I
and that's
can,
the whole low self-esteem thing, right? That's the
yeah,
instant sort of validation that at least you're something.
yeah, if I go home with you, you'll love me. And then maybe I won't feel so broken. I won't feel so empty. I won't feel so wounded. I won't have feel so much pain, so much self-consciousness. Like there's some power that I'll get from that or validation or something. I mean, honestly, anything. I would have taken anything.
Yeah, but the thing that sucks about that, because like, in the moment you feel that, but then the next day you almost feel worse.
Oh
All the
yeah.
guilt and shame and all the
Yes.
other stuff starts to sink in, and then, that's where that spiral starts whipping down harder and harder, I think, especially for women because of that.
Yeah, and that for me was the willingness to do something about it when I was 18 is because I could feel the schism between who I was behaving as and who I really felt I was. And just that vast difference between what my life looked like and who I felt like. And it was like being a ghost in my own life. I don't quite know how to explain it, but I just couldn't
Mm,
keep doing it. It was going to kill me.
wow. So what would you say has been one of the biggest contributors to rebuild that self-esteem, besides getting sober? Like what steps have you taken and do you continue to take to sort of rebuild that or have that?
Continuing to become different versions of myself. So recovery is the base, right? It's the foundation for all of it. If I'm not in my own recovery process, if I'm not seeking physical sobriety, I can't do any of the rest of it. But once that is accomplished, it becomes for me about how am I filling up my cup. And
Mm,
there's a huge spiritual component to that. I'm showing up and receiving, I'm a conduit. But some of the actions I've taken are traveling to other parts of the world, orchestrating travel so that my perspective can be widened, so that I
wow,
understand what the world is really like and what role I can play in it. I've been to Thailand, Japan, South Africa, India, Malaysia, Vietnam. I mean, I could go on Morocco, Ghana, lots of places.
wow.
Um,
And do you do that traveling by yourself?
it's a mixed bag. So I did a study abroad program called Semester at Sea.
Okay.
And this was right as I was finally landing in recovery this time around. And so I was on this cruise ship with my professors and my co-students, my cohort, and we were sailing to all these countries and studying every day we were sailing, and then out in the world, all of these miraculous places. And so sometimes I would get off the ship and I'd go with people and it was like a field trip in
Yeah.
Morocco. And sometimes I'd get off the ship like Japan. I just took my backpack and said, I'll see you in 6 days on the other side of the country.
Wow.
And I would encourage anybody who can to participate in that program because it fundamentally changed the lens of my life.
Sure.
Um, and because of that, then I have gone, like I said, backpacking Thailand and brought Rosie home. Um, yeah, it's just been a mix of all of it.
And as a woman, you were never fearful of being in a foreign country by yourself?
Oh, uh, I should have been. I just didn't know better. But
Yay, ignorance is bliss.
the thing is, there's big cities here in the U.S. that are sketchy.
Sure.
And for me, it was about having some level of security. So I took pepper spray with me just so I had something on my person.
Yeah.
And I was aware of my surroundings to the extent that I could be. And I stuck with the moms and the kids.
Mm,
So anywhere you go, what is true is if you find a mom with a kid who genuinely is just there as a human, they're not running some scheme or whatever. But if it's truly like you can tell it's just a mom with her kid and you look panicked, 99% of the time they're going to take you in. And I'm saying this as a woman who was traveling in my early 20s and I, like a cute, sweet little face. I get that. But like, oh, I'm lost. Help me.
Yeah.
One particular instance comes to mind. I was on an overnight bus from Vietnam to Laos or something like that. So overnight, and I got the last ticket on the bus. So I was in the back, which is basically just a flat mattress across the back of the bus, no seat.
Okay.
And so it was supposed to be me and a woman and another woman and her child. And in the middle of the night, a man crept into our bed. I couldn't see. I didn't speak the language. I'd never traveled by bus like this. So I didn't know who he was. I thought it was somebody's husband. And then I realized something does not feel right. And I had enough recovery around me in my life to trust my intuition.
Sure.
And so I pushed him off of me and said no. And the other woman next to me woke up when she heard that. And then all the women on the bus sat up. And then they all started throwing their slippers and yelling at this guy to get out of our compartment and pushed him back down the stairs. And he tried to come back a second time. And so we each just took turns being awake and keeping the others safe. And it truly allowed me to learn how to trust women.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine, did you all, everybody speak English, or this was
No, I
just
was the
like
only one.
almost an unspoken thing that was existing between you all?
Yeah, there was no language. I
Yeah.
spoke English. The woman next to me, I think, spoke Vietnamese. And then the next woman over was traveling from China.
Wow.
So no common language whatsoever. I mean, none.
Wow.
None at all.
That's amazing. And that just goes to show that it doesn't, it doesn't always have to be verbal. The connection can happen on so many different levels and not always in a sexual way.
Right. Yeah. There's so much connection to be had.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. There's connection of intention. There's connection of impact. There's connection of fun. I think a lot of people grow up and they forget to go out and play. Like they just forget how to do that. And I was taught, my mom taught me that, to ask people when I'm networking, hey, what do you do for fun on the weekends? And sometimes people can't answer it. I'm like, well, what are you going to do about that? What are we going to start doing? If you don't have an answer, what are you going to start doing for fun?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so funny. It reminds me of something. I was just up at my work and I was watching one of my coaches run the clients through. He's like, watch this. It is so funny how much everybody likes this. And we do warm-up routines. And he's like, okay, everybody skip to that side of the gym and skip all the way back to the other side of the gym. And you would just almost see everybody's like smiling and skipping, and they just like feel kind of like uncomfortable, but they kind of love it. It just sort of brought them back to being a kid where you would literally just skip for fun. But it was so funny because he already knew, because he'd been doing this with them for a while. Just watch how they all change when you have them just skip. It was amazing.
I love that so much.
Yeah. And it can be little things like that. It doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to go to the amusement park. I'm going to, eat this. I'm going to spend my money on that. It's like you can find fun in the simple things as well.
One of the things that I do in work to bring this concept into play, pun intended, is that we have dance parties. So anytime we're meeting as a team, we either start or end with 20 or 30 seconds of a song, and everyone gets to take turns picking their song. And we have really vast differences in age, so the music varies wildly, but you can tell who is really into the song because they'll close their eyes and they will literally dance like no one is watching. So that's been a really cool thing to watch our team get to do, and to get to learn about each other. And one of the people, she's a little bit reserved. She's in an accounting profession, and you would never guess it, but she's really into like metal.
Nice.
That's her song preference.
Yes.
Anytime. Metal or 80s rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be mine. There would be Pantera playing, and people would be like, oh, really, Angie? Like, yes, that's what we're doing. That's
I
so
love that.
cool. And you're right. Music is such a cool way to like peek into somebody's personality that you would never know existed if you didn't have music as their storyline.
Yeah, it's a I think a window into other facets of a person. Because so
Mm.
often we show up, and I think addiction recovery is an example of that. We show up as kind of one dimensional. I am who I'm trying to be in order to get the thing I want. And for me in recovery, it's been, well, who am I all the time, wherever I go? So I am always a dog mom of a special needs puppy. I am always a partner in a relationship wherever I go in the world. I'm always a business owner. I'm always a person in recovery. I'm always a daughter of a mother who I love and adore, by the way. Like, shout out, mom. Hi, I love you.
Aw.
My mom's my best friend. So gotta
Oh,
do it.
that's amazing.
Yeah, we could spend a whole podcast episode on that. A lot of what I'm sharing with you, she has taught me. She's been an amazing mentor in my life. And
That's great because,
yeah,
sometimes mother-daughter relationships can be strained just due to differing personalities, individualities, just they can be strained. So it's
mhm,
really cool to hear how great yours is.
yeah. And honestly, that's part of the journey too. As the mother of a daughter showing up in all those other ways in my life, we get a chance to road test whether or not our relationship is strong. So, sometimes we have a difference of opinion, and it's not that we always agree. What makes our relationship so valuable is that we sometimes don't agree and we choose to love each other to the other side of it.
Mhm.
And I didn't ask permission to share this story, but I'm going to do it anyway, and she'll let me do it. There was about a year and a half that our relationship was very strained, and we always knew we'd get to the other side. We just didn't know how. So it was literally just faith and love and persistence and taking space when we needed it, communicating when we needed it. And sometimes it was, I'm going to tell you what I need to say, and I need to say it the way it comes out, and I cannot protect you in how I phrase it. And I just need you to let me say what I'm going to say, and then we can sort out the fallout of how that lands for you. And we've
Mm.
had to take turns doing that because we were so busy trying to be polite or respectful to each other that we actually were not saying the words that needed to be said. We were not confronting the truths that needed to be seen. And we weren't able to get to the other side until we built that bridge. And the language, the direct communication is what allowed us to get there. And it
I
took us a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, though, that's nothing in time. That's just a little blip on the radar. And I think it's so interesting because that is sort of like a microcosm of what's wrong in the world, right? We're so afraid of our communications offending people that we very censor what we're feeling or how we want to communicate or what we want to say. And so no issues are really getting solved because we're all tiptoeing around everything because we don't want to offend anybody.
Mhm.
So I think if we could swing the pendulum back to that, it's like, well, maybe it's not what you want to hear, but it is what it is. Now we can like discuss it. We can, take from it and we can move on from it. That's where the healing begins.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that concept of time. My mom and I talk basically every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. So a year and a half was like unfathomable to
Mm,
us. And that is part of what created that situation is that I can't speak for her. My part is that I waited too long to have a conversation because I was afraid of the outcome I ultimately ended up with, which was that rough patch that we went through.
mhm,
And I I have spoken a lot more quickly and a lot more freely since then.
mm.
And I think we're better people for it. I think I'm a better leader. I know that I show up better in my recovery because of it, because I'm not waiting to try and figure out the right way to approach something. It's just, look, I'm going to approach this and do the best I can, and we will figure it out after.
Okay. And so that translates to your business and your employees and how you run people. You operate in the same manner?
Yeah. I mean, I say things more directly to my mom and my business partner and my life partner because they are in the trenches with me. If
Sure.
I'm mentoring someone, I will ask permission more often, but I'm still as full out. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't play small. So I will ask someone, I need to have a conversation with you. It may be uncomfortable. Are you in a place to have that conversation with me? Or would you like to come back to it when you've had a chance to prepare? And then they can tell
Mm.
me whether or not they're ready,
Mhm.
and we can reconvene at a different time if they're not available for it for whatever reason, emotionally, physically, time-wise, they're crunched, if they want time to prepare their thoughts. And I don't make people wait to know the topic. I want to talk to you about this so that they're not just sitting there in anxiety ball waiting.
Right.
Oh, I don't have an
And just going
agenda
over
and I
the
don't have.
millions of scenarios it could be. That's the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
not a hard thing to solve. It's like scheduling a meeting without knowing what it's about. Just tell me what it's about. Like, let's just get that done. Tell me why you want time. And then I
Yeah.
can tell you how I'm going to prioritize it. And so I feel like I at least owe my team that respect.
That's awesome. So what do you do? Can you share with us, your business?
Sure. Yeah. So Untied Business Solutions is my company. I have a business partner, Meredith, and she is an engineer, and I historically worked as a social worker. And we've
Mm.
come together, and through the journey of deciding what our scope would be, that what we've ultimately come to is a focus on bookkeeping that has a software integration component. We want to
Mm.
make sure people are making money and they know how much and they know how to make more, and we want to make sure that their business system is efficient and can support the growth. So that's really what we're looking for.
That's awesome, and I feel like that's something every business needs, you know? It's not just plug and play with QuickBooks, like, there needs to be a strategy involved and people sometimes to help guide you on that instead of just basic bookkeeping or accounting.
Yeah, people, I think a lot of times are looking for what borders on CFO support,
Yeah,
and they're looking in the wrong place. They're hiring like an entry level bookkeeper because they can't afford a CFO.
yeah,
And that is something we try and bridge the gap on, because it hurts my heart. Like, I go to sleep and it's painful to go to sleep at night knowing there's people out there who feel lost and unsupported in something that we do so well. Like, I just want to help people. And I literally have told my business partner, I don't want to know about sales, like goals or numbers in terms of money. I want to know how many people do we need to help to get where we're going. So she literally had to make a new spreadsheet for me that talked about how many people are we going to help at what level, because I
mhm,
could not conceptualize the money. It didn't matter. I didn't care. It was unpleasant for me,
yeah.
and I would check out. And so that's what we had to rework.
Well, we all have different driving forces. For some people, it is that money, it is that metric, it is that number. I'm the same way. I don't want to know about any of that. I don't care about any of that. How many people can I help? How many more people can I help? If I did more of this, could I help more people? If I did that, would it help somebody? And that for me, it's the same. It's more just the quantity of help that I can give. I hate the numbers.
Well, and that's the thing. I lead our bookkeeping team. I love numbers. I'm partnered with an
Oh,
engineer who likes the system piece of things, and I have
yeah.
an interest in that too. Would have a lot to talk about if we got into systems. Um, but I do. I like numbers. I just don't like money numbers as much as I like help numbers. I want to
Yeah.
know how many faces, how many new friends, how many relationships, how much support, how many hours of support, how much are we offloading from someone's plate? Because, social worker, that's what drives me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't do anything with the social work anymore except your underlying relationships with people in general. You have that.
Yeah, I have taken what I learned in a finite capacity and expanded it to the way that I move through the world. So I don't limit myself anymore to just a nonprofit or like a public works program.
Mhm.
I've opened the doors. So I show up as my social worker self, as a business owner, as a
Yeah.
mentor, as a mentee, as all the things that I am.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big key to a lot of it. And a lot of us that are in similar groups and stuff, it's a lifelong journey of still learning. Like it wasn't like, oh, we overcame all this massive adversity. We're all fixed now. Life is normal. It's like there is no normal life. There has to be constant work and growth in order for us to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I've been recently having that conversation with one of my employees, because we've
Mm.
been talking about, well, how much does she want to work? How much does she want to have for personal time? What does she want her life to look like? What role does she want with our company as we're growing? And we talked about the concept of physical rest versus emotional rest.
Mm.
Like there's a whole difference there. And instead of saying, I want to work more or work less, play more, play less, I only want to show up in the world this way, we started to ask her, how do you want to feel as you move through your life? What do you want work to feel like? What do you want to be accomplishing in the productivity that you're participating in every day? Because when we say work, it's, I don't know, the word itself doesn't feel great.
Yeah,
But
there's like a negative connotation there just by the word.
right. But your passionately productive time, who would want less of that?
Right.
I want to do as much of that as possible. I think it's David Meltzer that says that rather than thinking like, oh, how can I be efficient and go to bed on time today? He's literally trying to figure out how he can just stay awake enough hours in the day to help as much as possible. So he's collapsing into the bed at night and then sleeping a solid however many hours to get up and do it again. And that changed the perspective for me. It's not just I'm going to work enough to make enough money to stop working. It's how do I find ways to serve in the world that meet my financial goals, but also inspire me and fuel me.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame. And it's certainly not the way that I was approaching my life when I was pre-recovery.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite. Now I look around and it's like that separation between the life that I'm living and who I thought I was. Now my life is pulling me towards a more expanded version of identity because my life is expanding. And so my identity is then catching up with what's coming to fruition in my life, the abundance. And it's just, yeah, it's pretty profound.
That's amazing to hear. So what does that look like for you on a daily basis? Do you spend time meditating, visualizing, reading? Like what's part of your routine to create that like expansion and abundance?
It's kind of full circle to some of the things we've already talked about. It's the people I'm around because I can hear the vision for their lives. And if they can do it, probably I can do it. Like I can just hear that they just started working towards something and they just didn't quit. They just kept learning the skills necessary to get them there. So part of it is inspiration of the people I'm actually around, and not just authors, but actual true people that I can interact with and ask questions. And how did you do that? So the network I have, and then prayer and meditation every morning. And it's really simple, like ridiculously simple. I wake up and I ask God to help me remove selfishness, self-pity, dishonesty, fear, resentment, so that I can be of maximum usefulness. And before I literally wake up, drink my water, take my vitamins, after I do that, like before I even open my eyeballs, I say that prayer. And then I immediately go into the bathroom to start getting ready. And before I flip the light switch on, I stand there in the dark. It's quiet. It's dark. No one's awake in my house. And I take a couple of breaths before my day starts. And it's just that pause. And for me, that pause is the space for God to get into my life. If I can just leave a little room there. So that's my cue every time I touch my light switch in the morning. So that's kind of the structure of it. And then just all of the community events that I participate in for my recovery.
Yeah. Wow. It's really interesting because I think a lot of people get I don't want to say turned away, but I know I often hear I'm just so busy and where could I possibly fit that in my life? And it's just so much work. And it's like it doesn't have to be lengthy, cumbersome, like intrusive, like literally just get up 15 minutes earlier. Like you said, before anybody else is awake, just give yourself that space instead of hitting the snooze alarm. And the value you'll get in that 15 minutes is so much more than that 15 more minutes of not even really great sleep because you're just sleep alarming it. And so it just doesn't have to be such a big thing, but it can have immense positivity in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have done it all the ways. I
Yeah.
have had long morning routines. I've had night routines. I've had daily check-ins with mentors in recovery. I've just done all the things. You got to read these pages. You got to, all the stuff I could be doing. And it felt performative until I figured out what is it that helps me feel connected to God, not just what gives me the impression of performing my recovery well. And that was the game changer for me. And it's pretty brief and accessible and casual. And it's like, okay, hey God, how's it going up there?
Morning.
Yeah, seriously. It takes not much more time than saying good morning to another human.
Yeah.
It's about right. But again, ET phone home.
I love that. Well, and it's just such a simple little hack. It's funny you mentioned the cue is touching your light switch, and I just had Zach Babcock on, and he was saying a similar thing. The book Atomic Habits. That's what it teaches you, is how to stack good habits is by connecting it with something you already do, and it gives your brain that cue to do it. Because a lot of time when you're trying to do something new, it's like figuring it out. No, I forgot to do it, and if you just tie it to something you already do, it makes it that much easier to adapt to it and do it all the time.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you bring that up because I didn't consciously create that trigger, but I read that book this summer. I was walking, and that was the book that I'd play in my ear on audiobook. And I'm certain subconsciously that snuck in there. But
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't do that consciously. That wasn't an intentional choice. It was just I'd get to the bathroom and think, oh, I prayed, I didn't meditate. I guess I should stop for a second.
Yeah.
And that's how it evolved. It's fascinating.
It is. Yeah.
How
After I
that
read
works.
that book, I was like, well, wait, I have, one of those electric toothbrushes. So for 2 minutes every night and every morning, I could just practice gratitude in my head while I'm brushing my teeth. And so, yeah, it's just adding like little cues in your life stacked onto what you already do. Or I like the one too, like the visual cue. Like I have to have my vitamins out so I see them. And I'm like, oh, I got to take those. If they're tucked away nicely in a cupboard and my counter's all clear, I'm not remembering to take them. But if I put them right there, okay, I got it. I'm taking it.
I love that. I went to a antique mall with one of my best friends here, and we went, and I told her I need a tray for exactly that reason. I can't see my vitamins, and when I forget to take them, I feel awful. I
Yeah.
operate at an entirely different level. It is a like I can feel myself not working as well if I don't have the vitamins in me. It's not just like oh, that'd be nice if I took them. It changes my brain.
Yeah.
So we went and got this really beautiful little glass tray so that it has a spot and it's actually empty until I put the vitamins in at night and it's for the same reason that I won't remember if I don't have the trigger.
Yeah.
And that has been a journey for me too the last couple of years, is how do I create a life, not just emotionally that feels the way I want it to, but that is pleasing, pleasurable, pleasant. What fabrics am I wearing? What material do I want my blankets to be made of? Do I like the way my towels feel? I touch my towels all day, every day, all the time. Like, is that really the thing I need to try and not spend money on? Towels? Like, come on, get with it. And so I really have overhauled my entire life in terms of my disposables and my fabrics. And it has revolutionized the way I move through the world. I am so much.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a much more romantic way for me to move through life because I feel cared for. I feel pampered. I am surrounded by things that are beautiful or pleasant to me. And so I'm constantly getting these reminders or validations that it is okay for life to feel pleasant and pleasurable and comfortable and delicious. And again, those are not the things I think my nervous system was used to feeling pre-recovery. Yeah. And so I've really made it an intentional journey to rewire that.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I started doing Rent the Runway a couple of years because my PR person is like, oh, you need new outfits and this is so cool. And at first it was very difficult for me because I have like attachment issues, especially if I like it, I'm going to keep it for like 50 years. I'll literally never get rid of it, even if it's out of style. But this has really taught me how to have the nicest clothes. Like this is an $800 dress. Guess what? You're going to wear it once. You're going to look really good on it. Now you send it back. Okay, here's
Right.
a new one. And it's really like psychologically taught me to, you can enjoy all the best things, but you don't have to hang on so tight. You can like just sort of get that process of releasing and letting go and letting new come back in your life happen, but for similar reasons, because wearing those very nice clothes makes me feel really good and they fit better and they look better. And it's like, it's just such an interesting psychological process because there's no way I could afford to just have all those clothes. But then at the same time, how many times are you going to wear that dress in pictures? Like none. I mean, if it's a PR picture, you're going to wear it once and then you don't want to keep wearing that same dress. So it's been a really cool process for me to like find that similarly to what you do.
Yeah, I really appreciate that journey that you've been on and learning how to catch and release and
Oh,
have abundance around what you're wearing and the level or quality of what you're putting on your body. And
yeah.
I'm curious if you're willing to answer it, what
Oh, sure.
your how it's affected your style. Like, have you been more adventurous? Have you tried different things? What has that been like for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's for me, I've always loved clothes. So, and I've always been on the pretty cutting edge of style. So for me, it's just enabled me to go even more and deeper into that and really just, you're right, maybe explore more, try different things like rompers. I never once in my life wore a romper. I feel like I'm short and like they wouldn't fit right. But man, recently I found some, they look so good. I was like, dang, I've been missing out on rompers this entire time. This is amazing. So, yeah, you're right. It's allowed me to be even more adventurous, even more stylish, even more fun, but not get stuck in that era and just keep moving forward with what's new and innovative and now.
I love that. I just would talk about this all day long. I have a designer consignment business as a hobby business on
Ah,
the side. And I'm just fascinated by that concept of enclothed cognition that what you wear either can free you up to express a part of yourself that didn't get to come out to play as often, or it helps you step into a different identity of yourself that maybe you were grasping for before. I don't know if you've had that experience.
oh, yeah, of course. I mean, growing up poor, like, and I think this is where a lot of it stems from. I grew up in low income housing and I would go to school with kids that had all the designer clothes,
Mhm.
and my mom would make my clothes. And I was always very embarrassed by this. Or we would lay away clothes, but literally by the time she paid them off and I could have them, they were already outdated. And so
Yeah.
I always just grew up with this wanting of where I was not. And so to be able to be there now, it's an amazing feeling because it's like who I am in my heart. I love, I got purple hair. I like being stylish and modern and edgy. And so it's really cool to kind of have that freedom to be bold and be what I always was, but I never could enjoy as a child and longed for.
It's amazing that you've been able to step into that for yourself. It's a massive transition, such a
Yeah.
different experience.
Oh yeah. 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 And I mean, God bless my mom making clothes. Like I could never make clothes. That is something that's it's so funny. Now she's back to making me clothes again. But now I'm like, I'm wearing this. Like, thank you for this cute skull top, mom. You know my style. It's a little crop top. Like she's back to making me clothes again. So we've come full circle, except now I'm like proud to wear them and not embarrassed to wear them anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting how that perspective can shift in our lives, that things that used to feel like they didn't fit, we come back to appreciating down the road from a different vantage point.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where, the benefit of time and maturity and experience comes from. When you're young, you're trying to figure it out. You're just trying to be like everybody else. You don't want to be that odd bird out that stands out as the weirdo whose mom makes all their clothes. You want to be in back then it was the Jordache jeans and I wanted to look
Mhm.
like everybody else. And so psychologically, and if it wasn't that, it would have been something else like kids and teens and stuff. The peer pressure to be the same is so different than when we get over that and we realize the power is in being individuals, not the same, not with the herd, not doing what everybody else does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's massive. There's a shift that happens, an unlocking that happens, and it's in my own experience been the journey of becoming a little more wild, a little
Yeah.
more untamed. Like if I can just let myself be wild as I am, and learn how to funnel that into ways that serve other people, that is where I'm at my happiest. If I can be passionate, if I can be loud, if I can make a mess, all the things I didn't know how to be growing up.
Yeah.
And yeah, the addiction piece of that is that I grew up in a house that wasn't safe. And my parents tried the absolute best they could, and it just still wasn't what I needed. And that's just what that was. And so my parents tried to give me the opportunities they didn't have as kids.
Yep.
And so it's better than it was, I think, the further back you look in generationally. It's better than it was before, but it still wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
And so it's been that process of learning how to give myself, through fashion or through business or through recovery, learning how to give myself the space to step into who I always think I was. I think I was always loud on the inside. I just didn't let it out. I think I was always expressive and creative. You probably would have always enjoyed having purple hair.
For sure. I wanted my hair like Cyndi Lauper's when I was 13, and my mom was like, "No fucking way. Are you shaving a checkerboard in half your head and bring bright orange?" I always did.
I love that so much. I was always so jealous of the people that could do that kind of stuff.
Same. Well, and it's so interesting because even now, with me with my purple hair, and I started out very subtle. It was very lavender, and now I've just gone deep purple. But I get stopped so many times of, "I wish I could do that," and I'm like, "Why don't you?" "Oh, no, I mean, I couldn't and I shouldn't." And it's so interesting how people hold themselves back from what they really want to do. And when I ask for reason, like, "Why? Is it your job? Is it this?" "Oh, no, I work from home, or I'm just a stay-at-home mom." And I'm like, "Then why won't you do it?" And I've yet to understand the psychology of it because I've never gotten a good answer. Just, I wish I could do that, but I can't.
Yeah, I have had purple hair. I don't know if I look like someone who would have purple hair, but I went through a breakup, and I didn't plan it to be breakup hair, but I did. I dyed my hair purple, and it was the underneath, and it was it was somebody in beauty school who had never really done it on dark brown hair. So we
Oh,
bleached my hair in one go from nothing to platinum, and then dyed it purple all in one day.
wow.
That was a journey. But I can tell you that before, I felt like people would see me as less professional if my
Right.
hair was a different color. And
Yeah.
then I was afraid I would get too much attention. And I didn't know how to embody that much attention coming my direction from such a broken, insecure place. And then it was, well, I'm really attached to my hair and what people think about me because I got this, like long mermaid hair.
Yeah.
And I was really attached to what people thought about me because of essentially the sex appeal of the long hair. And I thought, well, if I ruined it, it's going to take it forever to grow back. And so I don't know if that's any of the answers you thought you might get, but for me, that's all of the things I was afraid of. And I ultimately just decided it'll grow back. I can undye it. I can just cover over it. And if people think differently of me at some point, having the purple hair, and I don't know if it's like this for you, I realized that the people who fit into my life were not going to opt out because my hair was purple. And if they couldn't handle me with purple hair, they weren't my people anyway. So it's that shift of what if they don't like me to what if they're not for me.
Yes.
It stopped being about contorting myself and started being about that release that you talked about with clothing, learning how to have relationships in a more open grip as well.
No, you nailed it 100%. And you're right. That was exactly my journey. I've just kind of forgotten it because now I've become so comfortable and confident in it that I forgot that is all the reasons that I slow rolled into it and I tested it. It was all those same things like, do I look professional at my age as a CEO of a company with purple hair? And I finally just started saying, you know what? This is the new normal. We're going to change the world and create an impact and show that you can be brave and be yourself. And still, like you said, have your tribe or have your people that like you or have who cares? It's not even about other people. How's it make us feel? It makes me feel pretty good. Purple's my favorite color. So I love it.
Just that excitement, that pleasantness or pleasure or satisfaction of having it be the way you want it to be.
Yeah. I
That's
bet
really
yours looked really
beautiful.
good though.
It was fun. I'm not gonna lie, it
I
was
love
pretty
how you
fun.
prefaced it as your breakup hair.
It was, and I didn't mean it to be. It's not
Yeah.
like I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do," like, at him.
Yeah.
I was just looking to shake things up,
Yeah.
and that's a pretty long story. I don't know how much of it I've told publicly, but, um, I was with someone for almost 6 years. We owned a house together, we had animals together, we totally renovated it ourselves by hand. Like, we had
Mm.
expressed our life, our dream into this house as a couple. And then some infidelity showed up.
Ugh.
And in a matter of about 72 hours, I packed up my life. I moved out of state. I totally reoriented my recovery process. I had to notify all my clients I was going to be full virtual moving forward. I released, I have a cat. I had a cat and a dog. The dog I still have, Rosie, same one, but I didn't get to take the cat with me.
Mm.
And then moved across the country all in 72 hours.
72 hours. That is crazy. No, no, no. And was that so you didn't have second thoughts, or just because you were so done, you couldn't get away fast enough?
Um, all right, we're just going to go there. So for me in this relationship, once I had the awareness that the person I thought I was with wasn't the person I was actually with, I couldn't reconcile it again. It
Yeah.
broke in a way that I didn't know how to put back together. And I could not physically stay in that space. And so I had to go. And I
Yeah.
didn't know if it was for permanent or not. I just knew I needed to not be there. And
Yeah.
so all of my friends from my recovery life, all of my friends, people that I hadn't seen in 6 months, people that just heard through the grapevine, they just, in the most overwhelming outflow of love I've ever experienced in my life, they just arrived. And I didn't really have to coordinate it. I think maybe I sent a text message and said, like, things are over, send help. And they just
Mm.
in droves, and they took turns around the clock this whole time. They taught me, re-taught me how to brush my teeth and shower. And like, I couldn't remember how to human anymore. And so I was in this broken place of, I just can't reconcile the difference between those two things of who I thought I was with and the behavior that was happening. And they
Yeah.
put all of my stuff in a storage unit and put me on a plane.
Wow.
And we tried to reconcile and it didn't work out. And if this person knows who they are, and if they are ever hearing this, like, I will always love you. And I forgave everything a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But something fundamentally changes. And I think you were so incredibly strong to so proactively say, you have to come first and you're making this decision, because I think so many people will stay in a relationship like, what did I do wrong? Is it me? They'll perpetuate the toxicity out of codependence or whatever it is. And I find it so cool that you were so strong to say, no, it's not okay. And you put you first.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I will do my best to receive that. I don't know that it felt like strength at the time, and I guess I'll have to go back and think through it again with more time and space and probably a journal. Um, but it was just the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
It was just the knee-jerk reaction of, I found out and I called him and I just said, "Hey, I know what was going on and don't come home.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who you are. There's no lying your way out of this. Don't come home. I'll be gone in 72 hours." Like, the other than calling my mom and screaming bloody murder, those were the first words out of my mouth once I found out.
Yeah.
It was just, I know what happened. You can't lie your way out of it. Don't come home. And I don't know. I honestly don't know that. I think it was just divine intervention, truly. And it's not that I don't think I have strength. I do. I think it took a lot for me to walk out of that and to reorient my whole life and walk away from where I had worked for 5 years. And that's the moment that I stopped actively serving social work, because there was the potential of continuing to do some work in the place that I had been in for 5 years before I brought Rosie home. But that was the moment that my whole life shifted. I truly just think God carried me through all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
strength, if I had to say where the strength showed up, it's in my willingness to try again. My willingness to continue building my business, my willingness to become someone that I wasn't then. Because I think sometimes when people experience a traumatic break like that, they just stop growing. They just survive from then
Yeah.
on. They just stay in that wound for the rest of their life. And we've all met people who are like this, that they're in retirement homes crying about something from 50 years ago.
Yep.
And the solution for me and the strength, I think, was that I was willing to become someone else. So it's part of why, as vulnerable and a little bit exposing it feels to talk about all of this, it's why I'm willing to, because I'm not her anymore. I was her, and now I'm someone else. I'm not the same me. And so there's some psychological distance between that awful moment in my life and where I am now and who I am now. And it makes it easier to talk about. And I ultimately share it because I hope that it helps someone else who's been there to know that it's possible to survive again after that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, not even just survive, like you didn't relapse over this. You didn't cave
right.
in. You didn't use this as an excuse to go down a dark path. You stayed the course.
Mhm. It's the
And that's not
willingness.
always easy to do either. And you developed a brand new community in your new area, a new job. Like you pivoted hard.
Yeah, for sure. And I kept answering the damn phone.
Yeah.
I think that's why it matters so much to me now, is because there was a point in time when my phone was the only connection I had to recovery until
Yeah.
I got myself reoriented. It
Yeah.
was the only lifeline. The recovery books that I had access to, the literature, and my phone.
Nice.
And it kept me sober.
That's great. Do you work out?
Yeah, on and off. It's been more or less of a focus depending on the season of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I do. I do a lot of walking, a lot of yoga. I love to swim. If
Oh,
you can put me in water, you'll have a hard time getting me back out. Pool,
hence
lake,
the mermaid
river.
hair.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
mermaid
it's a
hair in
very
the
real
water.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I
I
grew up
love
on an island, so it kind of, makes sense.
what island?
I grew up
Wait,
northwest of Seattle, so San Juan Islands, up towards Canada.
wait, you were swimming in that water?
Oh yeah, we did not care that it was cold. We swam in the
Oh
pool a
my
lot, but we swam in rivers and
goodness.
lakes and whatever else you could let us in. Not so much the ocean, but yeah, whatever water we could get to. All of us were just water babies. I was on a
Wow.
swim team, so I mean that helps.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I love water. I love swimming. I do not like swimming in cold water. That for me is not. I mean, I live like what, a mile from the ocean, and it's California. It's not freezing. It's not like up there. But even that, I'm like, no, I'm good. But put me in Hawaii, I won't leave the water. Like I spend my entire vacation in the water, snorkeling. It's such a happy place for me. Working out, like, I'll challenge myself to, swimming exercises and stuff. I also love the water a lot.
So let me ask you. You asked about whether I work out. What prompted that question?
For a lot of people, that is what's helped them get through hard times, like getting into the gym or doing a hard workout or that sort of thing. For some people it's spirituality, for some people it's exercise, for some people it's got to be both. So it was more just a curious thing if that was part of it, or if it was more the spiritual, God, and then doing the work.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I try not to judge myself about the way that my emotions come out physically. So it's not necessarily a workout, but I will throw my arms up or hop around the house or run in circles or do some kind of sort of hippy dippy movement, which I'm embarrassed to admit, but that's what it looks like for me. Is if my body cannot hold the feeling I'm experiencing, if I emotionally feel dysregulated, I will just get into my goofy ass self and let myself move however I need to until I get to the other side. And I think some
Amazing.
people call it shaking, and there's like a whole bunch of different methodologies around it, but I haven't found the need to put it in a container. It's just however my body needs to move. If I need to swim, I can tell you when I need to swim. It's a very real need for me.
Yeah.
But if I need to walk, if I need to do yoga, if I need to hop around like a banshee, so be it.
Hey, and there is no right way, wrong way. It's different for all of us. I love that. I mean, there's interpretive dancing. There's so many things you could do. I know I've been on certain like spiritual retreats and whatnot. And we did that. We closed our eyes and just danced. And I am not a dancer. I grew up as a heavy metal kid. Like I was very anti dancing, but there was something very freeing if I could close my eyes and everybody else's eyes were closed too, where I could freely dance there. You do feel that. You feel the energies and the power and the fun and the freedom, different than working out.
Mm-hmm. Pole dancing, as much as I have been embarrassed to admit that too, we're just going full out this session.
Yeah, we're doing it. It's good.
Pole dancing was that freedom for me. And I went in like a tank top and yoga pants. Don't y'all get in the gutter with your brains. I was wearing yoga pants and a tank top. But it was the same concept of they played music and I got to explore myself through my movement. And it had a little bit of interpretive and a little bit of sensuality. Sensuality meaning like of the senses, the touch of it, the movement, all of it. And I think it's got a component of that workout piece because it's not just casual dance. Like you're lifting your body up random ways. And it was one of the best workouts I've ever had in my life.
Dude, it is so much harder
amazing.
than it looks like because, and I learned this from CrossFit, like we'd have to climb the rope to the top. And it took me so many years to figure that out. And I'm like, holy crap, these girls that are able to like do that at the top of the pole, that is some massive like core strength, other strength. It's not just looking sexy. Like that's work and that's skill. And it's really impressive, really.
It's an amazing thing. And I think more people don't talk about it for it's the purple hair phenomenon. We're just going to name it that. And now we'll just know that's what that means.
I'm going to
The
trademark
purple hair
that.
phenomenon. I think you should. There's things, especially as a woman, that I shy away from because I think if people saw this facet of me, they wouldn't take me seriously. If people saw this dimension of me, they wouldn't take me as a professional. They won't want to do business with me. They won't respect me.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to, I will say, a point in my life where I'm just over it. Look, we're all grown. We all got here probably the same way. Petri dish aside, all of us got here because we do the thing none of us like to talk about professional women doing.
Yeah.
And I'm just over it. If it can help somebody, I want to talk about it. I feel that way about recovering from sexual trauma. I feel that way about pole dancing. I feel that way about my hopping around my house. I feel that way about talking about the moments after I found out about the affair. Like I'm just not about hiding those parts of my story anymore.
As you shouldn't be, because this is where people come to trust you. That's how I've gotten in the last few years. And people are drawn to my genuineness and my transparency and confidence because of having genuineness and transparency. I'm confident because I just don't, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And that's okay. But people will come to you even more because they trust you, because they see like you are who you are. There's not two different people. There's not the Andie that's over here, very businesslike and very conservative. But then there's the Andie fun time over here. And then there's Andie, like I'm recovery Andie. They realize you're the same in every place. You show up the same everywhere. And that's what really builds trust and makes people want to come to you even more.
Yeah, it's been a really cool journey to get there. Thank you for putting it so well. You really explained it quite nicely just then.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm going through my own thing too. It's like, at points in our life, we go through things and then we re-go through them in a different way and we re-go through them in a different way. And every time I'm finding a little more personal power, a little more personal strength, a little more, I don't care, not that I don't care, but at the same time, I'm just enjoying just being me, and that's good enough. And if it's not good enough for you, that's okay.
Yeah, I love that. Very well put.
Awesome. So what's next for you? Do you have anything new happening? Any exciting stuff? Any announcements you want to make?
Yeah, I mean, all the time there's things I'm working on right now. I'm working on getting my toes wet or how do you say that? What is that phrase? Oh my gosh.
Dipping your toe in the water?
Yeah. I'm dipping my toe in the water with retreat planning. Someone has taken me under their wing, and I'm getting to practice corporate retreat planning, which has been a really fun time. I like getting to practice being a newcomer at something again, because I don't do that as often in my life now. So
Yeah.
that's been a fun journey. I think this podcast is a step in the right direction. I'm working on developing a personal brand. I would like to speak more often. So I guess just thank you for giving me the opportunity and
Absolutely.
spending some time with me.
Well, you've done a phenomenal job. I mean, you absolutely should lean into this, as they say. You should, because you're really good at it. I think you're very insightful. You're a great communicator. I mean, you might even consider having your own podcast. You're really good at it. So I think that's something you'd be great at.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's my question, because the name of the show is called Going Rogue with Angie Manson. What do you think, and I know we've probably touched on several of these things already, in your life where either going rogue or when you went rogue was the right thing to do, or maybe it was the wrong thing to do, but you did it, and what did you learn from that?
Any time that going rogue equated to listening to my intuition, it's been right.
Yep.
So that is my take home. When it feels aligned, I can't go wrong. Even if it's messy, even if people don't understand it, even if other people are not on board or naysaying or whatever, I have to be the only one sometimes that believes in the intuition, and that is enough. So that's my journey with going rogue. And I could give you a million examples. Semester at Sea was an example. Recovery was an example. Leaving California after the affair was an example. Starting my business, staying in my business, bringing home a wheelchair dog. Like, my whole life has been a list of me going rogue against what people think I should have been doing.
Yep.
And I just categorically resent that word. I do not accept it. It is not in my dictionary. I should nothing. I either am or I am not. So
I love it. And you put it exactly perfectly, which describes me too. And those are the things I'm most prideful in, are when people said, you shouldn't, you can't, don't. And I said, okay. I listened to my intuition and I did it anyway. And there's just satisfaction of following your own voice and not what people think is right for you.
I love that.
And there's a bravery about that. Not everybody behaves that way. Not everybody can operate that way because they're, fears, or they don't want to stand out, or they don't want to disappoint. There's a lot of reasons why people don't follow that intuition, but I don't think you or I have that.
I've never known to not have it. So I'm glad to meet a friend who feels the same.
Absolutely. Always. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been an amazing guest. I've had a great time with you. And I'm here for you, cheerleader, for you the whole way. If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out. I'm always here as well.
Thank you so much for spending the time with me. This has been a fabulous experience.
Awesome. So tell our listeners where they can find you if they need a friend and they want to reach out, or they have interest in any of the things of your business, all the different things you're doing. How can they find you?
Sure. Instagram, honestly, is a great way, at Andie Herrick. And our work website is at untied.work, untied.work. So either place, send me a message on the work website or a DM in my personal Instagram.
I love that. Honestly, I wish I had found you a few years ago because, and I'm just going to deviate real quick, because we had a CPA who was acting as our CFO, but CPAs and CFOs are two totally different kind of people. And we were like, why can't we get to where we need to get to? And when you have someone who's more, their primary job is to whatever they do. Anyway, it held us back, and I really could have utilized your services, because sometimes you need a visionary that's outside the box and realm of what's normal and customary, and say, hey, have you thought about this? Would you think about that? Why don't we look over here? It's more than just a bookkeeper. It's somebody who's finding you opportunities to do the things you want to do, not just telling you, no, you shouldn't do those because this is what your P&L says.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame when you've got a visionary in that role. You hit the
Absolutely.
nail on the head.
Yeah, it almost sounds to me like you kind of borderline on fractional CFO type work, where you're like, let me hold this hat for you for a while until you figure it out, sort of thing.
Yep, our bookkeepers do. They stand with their toes right on that line, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we might dip one foot over, but we really do. We toe that line. And then what we really enjoy is when somebody gets to graduate and bring accounting in-house and find a full CFO to join their team. So
Yeah.
that's our intention, is to do the books with as much of a relationship focus as possible. And then when it's time to graduate, hand things off as elegantly as we can.
I love that, because I think that's where, a lot of people in your position, they want a customer for life, so they don't necessarily, they want to help you, but they don't want to help you so much that you don't need them anymore. So I think it's very cool that that's your mission, isn't to be a lifelong partner, is to get you in a place where you don't need us anymore. Then we know we've succeeded.
Yeah, that's 100% the hallmark of winning, is if we get somebody to a place where we either develop a whole team for them inside of our business structure, or we build one for them inside of theirs. And I think it's short-sighted ultimately if people are just looking to keep the client account, because that doesn't serve anybody. I want the referrals. That's what I'm focused on. If I help you in a level that is loyal, fanatically so,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to help me succeed as well. So I just don't have the scarcity around it. I want to help them get as big as they can, that they want to be, as quickly as they can, that they want to go, and
Yeah.
then transition them from there.
I love that. Such a great purpose, such a great mission. You are doing amazing things, my friend. I am so glad to have you on today.
Thank you so much.
All right.